Hello. Oh. There we go. Hello and welcome to the Schooner Pod. I'm your host, Bobby Howard. With me, we got Ty, we got Jameson, and folks, we are running live on YouTube after a very frustrating OU basketball loss. But we're here to kind of wrap, just kind of talk about things. I was gonna say wrap up the football season, but we've wrapped up the football season 8 times already. We're mainly here to just kind of talk about what's happening because we're kind of, as we've mentioned, contractually obliged to. But that's great. So, Jameson, just fresh thoughts, many of which who have watched the OU basketball game, your quick thoughts on the game. What the hell was that?
It's simple as this team didn't even deserve to be in that game to begin with. I feel like we got to the line and got bailed out on a lot of fouls, and we had a lot of untimely turnovers, and I feel like we were just outmatched on the defensive end as well. Mo Gibson, for sure, on the defensive end, you can see he's an absolute, liability that teams will bully when it comes down to the postseason. But overall, it's frustrating. I was talking about this before we got on. That last second drive, I understand you only have 4 seconds, and the chance of you tying that game is minimal, but I would have really enjoyed to see Groves actually have some fundamentals and pass the ball an outlet as a big man rather than take 2 dribbles, then do the suicide essentially pass to Harkless to give him no shot. It was an absolute embarrassing ending to an overall embarrassing game that I thought we could have squeezed out, but in all honesty, we didn't deserve to even be in.
Yeah, honestly, this OU basketball team just, they're not that good. They're not that good at closing. And not only that, but throughout the season, as we've seen it progress, the offense has gotten just worse and worse and just kind of grimier. Unfortunately, Tanner Groves just isn't really a, Big 12 caliber big. We've seen it, he just can't reliably make threes, and he can't reliably grind inside. And that's, there you go. What do you do with that? And, this is a transition year. It was always going to be a little weird. What is up with my hat right now? It was always going to be a little weird. So, what are you going to do? It's just kind of the way it is. So, if they make the tournament, great. I don't really have a lot of expectations for them going forward. A bit of a disappointment. We're going to dive in with that with Bowden Blake in a little bit. But, Ty, have you been watching any basketball? What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I did. Actually, a little bit earlier, around 2 hours ago, OU Fit and Rec on Instagram was streaming Cal Sig versus Sig Ep IM basketball, which is far more entertaining than NCAA basketball, I might add. So catch some IM basketball now streaming online for free.
For free? Wow. They're nice enough to not charge you for IM basketball.
Well, you're paying and your data being collected by Meta and your internet service provider. But yeah.
I think
that's all in all. They really did stream for some reason. I don't know why. It's a recipe for disaster, streaming fraternity IM basketball live on the internet.
Surely they don't have the volume up on that, right?
Yeah, if you think Dennis Rodman was crazy.
Yeah. All in all about this OU basketball team before we move on, kind of talk about some other sports and then talking about top 5 NFL players in the league to round out the NFL season. I think that this OU basketball team, we're probably on the outside looking in now when it comes down to tournament. And we're going to have to win some games that we really have no business in winning. And we're going to have to win every single game that we're supposed to win. And that's going to be tough. And if that's not the case, if we do what we're supposed to do for the rest of the season, we're going to have to show out in the Big 12 tournament. I don't really believe in us. And to be completely honest with you, I don't see a track in us doing well in the tournament because we don't have a go-to scorer that will go get us a bucket at the end that's reliable, who won't turn it over. So in all honesty with y'all, unless I see some kind of revelation in these next couple games of, I think Harkless would be the only guy that I believe in that could be that kind of guy. I don't believe we're going to be making the tournament.
Yeah, it's going to be a long shot. Every time we get a little bit of hope, a little bit of an upswing, we just get pounded by the schedule. I think the schedule is definitely a part of it, but also they failed to win like TCU at home, which is still a tough opponent, but those are the type of games you have to win. I think really
I think it's not as dire as you guys think. Certainly, we wouldn't be a Jordan Brand school unless we were a basketball school. So, we can't be relying on football and other sports to be mentioned later. We're a basketball school, right? Like that's why we have Jordan branding. Certainly,
well, let me tell you something.
Certainly, if we're the only Jordan Brand school in the Big 12. Certainly, we're the best basketball school in the Big 12, right? Why else would we have a basketball player on our football jerseys?
Whenever I type in OU schedule in current basketball season into Google, it takes me to Oakland University, not Oklahoma. So
that's amazing.
Oh no!
And if you put Oklahoma basketball, it would probably pull up either IMs or football again. So
that's tough. That is just tough. Hey. I'll say this: at least OU, OU's women's basketball team, very, very good. Jenny Bereznek has them just absolutely, just rolling. Lost a tough one to Texas, but what?
Bobby, I just typed in Oklahoma schedule and it brought me the women's basketball team. I'm not even playing right now. This is ridiculous. This is so embarrassing.
That's
I don't know if this is just my funky Google, but this is legitimate. Please try it, y'all. Type in OU schedule and see what pops up.
Type in Oklahoma basketball schedule and
no, just say Oklahoma schedule, and where they auto populate like the schedule through Google.
I'm trying that right now.
This is really sad. They're just Google's eliminating this men's basketball team on my end.
Okay, I got men's.
Okay, so I think there's something funky. My Google is thought that my current location is in all other parts of the whole globe. Sometimes it is very funky, and I do not have a VPN or any of this. So Google, I guess maybe is just the algorithm knows I don't need to see any more men's basketball of Oklahoma. I always trust the algorithm. It knows me better than I know myself.
It's just trying to save you some heartbreak, trying to save you some struggle. That's all it's trying to do. The algorithm is here to help. I guess I don't know. Only if it's trying to give you draft. If it's trying to give you DraftKings promo codes, it's trying to help. Jameson, what were you gonna say?
Let's talk about some happy times because OU's best sport is softball, obviously, and we're upon it. What we did in California, Bobby, was honestly nuts. And this team, Jocelyn Allo, we knew she was a beast and she was a freshman. Guess what, people? Wake up. She's a senior now. So she's going to be the same best player in the nation that she's always been.
Oh, I mean, you couldn't ask for a better start to a season. Won all 5 games, but when you're talking OU softball success, you're not just looking at dubs. They outscored their opening weekend opponents in their 5 games 40-1. They run-rolled 3 teams, and they beat number 3 UCLA. It seems like they haven't even taken a step back at all. They've just gotten better.
Yeah, we're in the midst of a dynasty right now when it comes to softball, which is super cool. Honestly, it's really cool. Not only that we're that dominant, but OU, I think, will forever be good at softball. Oklahoma's kind of the Mecca of softball. We have the softball complex up by the zoo in Remington in the city, not affiliated with OU. That's just USA softball, but we're so good, and it's crazy because in the commute to campus up Jenkins all the time. Anytime you go by and there's anything going on with softball, it is packed. Like, we're not just good. There's just tremendous support there from the university and from the community, which is awesome because that's the stuff that perpetuates and creates the Mecca of softball, which that's kind of an overused term. Some people will refer to places full of people that are apathetic and potentially, in between homes and dealing with medical substance abuse issues. They will refer to those places as the Mecca of a certain sport when they're not. But OU is the Mecca of softball.
I think I know a place like that, but I can tell you this. Oklahoma City absolutely is the Mecca of softball. And Oklahoma as a state is. You even have to give a little bit of a nod to OSU, who has had an awesome program, really, as well, who has brought up their program to the next level. But in terms of, like, who the queens of softball are, it easily is OU. And, I got to ask, are they too good? almost like uninteresting, like the regular season, that they just murder every team?
No.
I mean, I would say, like, is it worth watching them on TV? But they're never on TV, which is kind of garbage. Like, OU UCLA, not on TV. That's garbage. Like, we need to start showing this on TV more. And I'm not just saying this, because, my team's good. But it's just a legitimately fun sport.
Yeah, you know what? You know what OU softball doesn't have? Even when they're blowing people out, they don't have people leaving, halfway through the game to go to the bars. Is there a correlation there? I don't know. Maybe it's because they play on weekdays. But just by the number of students leaving to go to the bars, that would indicate to me that scientifically OU softball is more entertaining than OU football.
If we just make a smaller stadium instead of keep making our football stadium bigger, maybe people wouldn't leave because the tickets would be
I will die on the hill. I will die on the hill that OU football should be any student that wants to come, free of admission, parents of players or family of players, and donors only. I will die on that hill. Alienate our viewers. I don't care. If you're not giving thousands of dollars to the university each year, or your immediate family member is there, you should not be allowed to view the games in person.
Oh my God.
This is like a high-end country club, essentially, what we're turning it into.
It's Bushwood. Yeah. It's
Bushwood.
Yeah. It's Bushwood, and all you guys are what's his name that comes in with the jazz hands. Yeah, making fun of everyone's hats and trying to build subdivisions next door and strip malls and stuff, right?
Well, that doesn't
I'm Judge
doesn't make us Ty Lee Judge Smales. Well, that won't alienate our audience at all. But yeah, no, I've always disagreed with that because I think the students,
Yeah, because you don't give me money to the school.
I do give money to the school. I'll have you know, $57 were taken out of my account. That went towards my my payment plan for my football ticket donation. So I will have you know, sir, I am a donor to the University of Oklahoma.
Yeah, that's tough. $57. That's going to pay for an eighth of the Wagyu steak that one of our 2023 guys are going to be eating here pretty soon.
Yeah, no, hey, that goes straight to the ranch in Norman for sure, which apparently is not as good as the ranch in Oklahoma City.
Honestly, what is the deal? They've got to have signed some kind of like deal, like an NIL deal, the ranch, with like OU football team, or OU football helped fund like this new building of the new location in Norman. There's something there because this team is going to that restaurant very, very frequently. And you just see these players going out there, and we've mentioned this in the past on these past pods. There's something going on, and I just had to say.
So to clarify, we don't want to step on any sort of toes, or slander or libel anyone. We'll bring our resident attorney on later to clarify. But I am a bit of a food critic here in Norman. I dine around the world, as you guys can see. The Ranch Steakhouse in Norman, I think maybe what it provides in Norman specifically is an atmosphere. So let me put it this way. It's Instagram dining, if that makes sense, right? Because your other options in Norman are what? Outback,
Benvenutis.
Longhorn Norman has improved. I will give them credit.
Not to ruin any future sponsorship deals.
Yeah, and some other stuff like that.
But like Legends also, like, that is apparently like a local like steakhouse. Not that great.
Yeah, but they don't provide, right? You have the hole in the wall vibe or the big chain vibe, and then you have Ranch, which sort of presents itself as more of architecturally and sort of presentation and everything else presents itself.
It's new and pretty
style. It's that they have the big gas fireplace out front that you can take big group photos. They have a valet parking for it's in the same parking lot as Torchy's. It's like in between Torchy's and like Tucker's Onion Burgers, and they have a valet park like parking and stuff. But it's
hey man, you should see the original one. It's kind of in a weird spot.
Yeah,
it's right next to a Pet Supplies Plus.
They're trying to
exactly.
They're flexing for the gram, and then just off to the left, you got like a Ross Dress for Less. So I mean, it's really it's the Texas experience. It's a lot like a lot of our players from Texas. are used to experiencing. So just sort of artificial consumerism.
We got our guy Thad Turnipseed out here in front with his all white, Air Force Ones. You see the distant glow of Crest Foods in the background. But you know what? What would be an even better background is apparently the OU basketball stadium project is back from the dead. It has been dead for like 3 years. The Norman voters shot it down, but they've brought it back from development hell. What do we think about a new OU basketball stadium kind of by that target? Do you think it would work? Do you think that's a good idea?
By Target?
Yeah, it would be up by Target.
I don't think it changes anything. So think about the money you put in. Do you think you're going to get that? How long is it going to take through this change of location to actually get that money back from all of this construction? I just think I don't support it. I think you just got to deal with the cards you got here. Obviously, we're not a basketball school, and it's going to suck. But guess what? If you start winning games, then people start to come. I have a feeling that if we maintain what we're doing recently, I don't know how much different it's going to be.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying in terms of wins or losses, but I'll tell you this. One, you don't have to go all the way down through Highway 9. That is a huge pain in the ass. The second you try to actually get to Norman proper and then fight through campus traffic or fight past Highway 9, that's a mess. You can skip all of that. That's a plus. Second, it's going to be a whole entertainment district style thing where you can go grab a beer, outside before the game and walk in instead of Malloy Noble where it's just in the middle of nowhere. So I, for one, think it's a good idea. I get that it would be a bummer for students. It's a bit out of the way, but they don't even care. Well, actually, I take that back. They have been really good this season. But you can just kind of bus them up. That wouldn't be too bad. Maybe give them a couple free beers on the bus. I don't know if that's legal. Probably not.
Porter will find a way.
Yeah, exactly. Just find a way. But I don't know. I think it would appeal to the overall crowd a little bit more. I certainly would like it. And plus, I just hate the Lloyd Noble Center. It is ugly as hell. Looks like a big old planter wart right in the middle of a parking lot. Just sucks.
Yeah, I just don't think. I think the people that would go to the games, who are currently going to the games right now, would still go to the games and they'd just be like, oh, this is a lot nicer. I just don't know how much more extra money this would bring us in. I understand why it's been getting voted down. But we're not playing with fun coupons here. Obviously it's an extremely large project. So that's my thing with it. But if they end up doing it, I'd be happy, obviously, like you said. But Oklahomans and just people in general are just born lazy. And I don't know if that's going to be the tipping point that is going to say, oh, I'm going to drive down to Norman for the game. People don't want to drive down from their Norman house 30 minutes to go to a basketball game. That last 2 hours.
I will say it's been a while. You guys have probably experienced this some. I know you guys were in Norman probably more frequently than a lot of people that live in Oklahoma City. But Norman, I'm part of the problem, I will say, because I live in a new build subdivision, but there is a lot of development in Norman, specifically on the sort of Highway 9 corridor with subdivisions being built, especially east of sort of Classen or 24th or whatever. And there's a lot of people that live in Norman now and work in the city. Norman traffic wise is not what it was when y'all were in school, which I can pretty firmly say since I went to school with you guys and I'm still in school. Here in Norman, long story, but traffic-wise, Norman is absurd. And from where I live, just south of Highway 9, and anyone on campus, to get up by Target, that's not like a 5-minute hop on 35 anymore. If you're dealing with Lindsay and all the stoplights or Highway 9 now, you're talking about 15, 20 minutes. And then if you have a serious game day commute, you're talking about a pretty substantial commute for a very short distance. So it doesn't make sense to me. I don't think it makes economic sense as well. But who knows? If you got government funds coming in, I honestly, I think it kind of makes sense with sort of not revitalize because there's never been anything there, but create an area. But I just think that maybe the area is a little bit too close to other similar areas. At the point that you're going to create something in, by target for OU basketball to play, you might as well just get them playing in whatever it's called, Paycom now, which Bobby, you and I went to a game at Paycom. It was great, in OU basketball game. Or you revitalize the Blazers. Is it Blazers Hockey Center?
Blazers
Hockey Center. No. You do McCaslin before you do Blazers hockey.
You know what? Here's a wild one. Because it's you're talking about a $10-20 million project to build a new basketball stadium. That mall and more that's like a charter school now.
Crossroads Mall?
Yeah, make that a charter school / OU basketball / hockey arena.
All right, recruits, come on over here. Let me show you our stadium.
We're gonna turn it into
you guys know how Oklahoma politicians are, right? Like they'll build some like weird half-assed stadium like by Target in Norman, and then they'll be like, all right, let's buy the Denver Broncos and bring them here to be the Norman Broncos. So
that's so wrong on so many levels.
Wow. Okay.
Let's move to our last content.
Yeah. So this is our main topic. This was an actually really great post from Joe Bettner of Eyes on Oklahoma. Excellent newsletter.
No free ads.
By the way. No free. Well, kind of free ads because we're kind of slightly using this idea. After diving deeper, I found out it was based on an article. I just saw Red Dirt Sport tweeting about it, so I was like, that could be a good way to fill up some content. So here we are. We're going to give our top 5 active Sooners in the NFL. It's not going to be draft style. We're just going to give our 5, kind of roundabout sort of deal. What do you say? Let's start out with 1.
Let's start with 5. Let's start with 5 and go up to 1. You don't want to hit with 1. Everyone wants to know who's the number 1. I say we go with 5 and say if people agree. You don't want to start off with 1. Everyone's like, ooh, I can't wait to listen to the number 5.
You're making the assumption that this is like a coherent list that we've all coordinated on, right?
It's like we'll just get up to a point where we all agree on like a couple guys, and then we just say those guys. You don't really have any debate.
We have like 8 minutes to make this segment work, and do you honestly believe this is an 8-minute segment?
No, I think that we just say here's my number 5, and then everyone goes through their number 5, and then we go up that way.
Let's kick it.
Yeah, fine.
Okay, right. My number 5. I'll just go ahead and start. My number 5. I feel like kind of a stretch, but I'm going Creed Humphrey, just because what he did this season at the center position as a rookie, and he was the number 27 player on the PFF list with a 92.5 grade. You know how difficult that is to do at one of the most difficult positions to play in the NFL. I think that he's extremely special. Obviously, he's got a lot of great pieces around him, the Chiefs, to make him look even better. But I feel really optimistic on him that I put him in my top 5.
So I don't think it's that crazy. And not to go out of order, but I put Creed Humphrey 4. I really think his PFF grade speaks for itself. He was shattering records not just as a rookie, but really just killing it at the center position as a whole. What he did this year, throw out the fact that he's just a rookie. He was putting up some just insane numbers, which is just, what I'm trying to say is he's breaking my brain, for one. But as a rookie, to put up those numbers that are some of the best in the league overall over several years, I mean, what are we doing? Like, this guy is an absolute star. He was completely robbed out of a Pro Bowl bid. And, yeah, people like Creed. So that was my number 4. My number 5, I went with Mark Andrews, one of the best tight ends in the league, super reliable.
You put him below Creed?
What?
Bruh! Mark Andrews below Creed? Dude, Mark Andrews been killing it this season. Like you just said,
I know.
He's probably the best tight end in football the way he played this season. He doesn't have that title yet. But okay, I want to hear your reasoning because I'm just aghast.
I think it's a really good list. And I think all 5 guys are really tight, and you could really switch it either, one of either ways. I really think it's a tight list between 1 through 5. That being said, I just think what Creed did, And maybe some of it's a rookie bias. I think so, that might be part of it. However, I just feel like playing the center position that young, I was just really impressed with that. I think Mark Andrews, though, obviously the best tight end in the league this season, also incredible. It really could have been a 4-5 flip. I have a lot of appreciation for the O-line, especially, at his age. I kind of like him. The fact that he was that young and that good, I think that kind of took a shine to it. That being said, that might have clouded my vision a bit because, again, Mark Andrews was insane this year. So, Ty?
All right, so for my number 5, you guys are probably going to get upset at me. Hopefully the listeners and the viewers will agree with me. He would be much higher on the list, but he was so good when he played. He's just declining. And for me, even though he's a reserve player right now, he's still top 5, is Gerald McCoy. He was the only thing the Bucs had going for him. Okay, give me that look, right? But he has never gotten the recognition that he deserves, right? Like, he was legitimately the best player on Tampa Bay in not their darkest hours, but in some very dark times. But you're talking about a dude when OU had really no one defensively in the league, and he's still kicking. And a guy that was representing OU defensively, saying, "Hey, we're still out here." Guy was like 30 years old now. He's super old, and he's still in the league. He's still making that league minimum on the reserve. You guys are shaking your heads. I understand.
It's because he hasn't had a tackle since 2019.
He deserves his recognition, though. When he was good, because he's still in the league, I'm calling it like a sort of an asterisk or bending the rules. When he was good, he was such a good OU player. It's got to be brought up. So Gerald McCoy's
but the same thing with Adrian Peterson. You can make that argument, and you could put Adrian Peterson above Gerald. But the problem
let's not spoil my number 2. Okay.
So Ty
took a different.
My number 1 is Sam Bradford.
Ty rewrote the prompt a little bit here. That's okay.
No, I did not. I did not. My
right.
other ones are far more legitimate. You guys will agree. But I had to bring that one in because he's still active. I wanted to sort of, think outside the box.
Okay, fair enough.
I like it. My number 4 is Joe Mixon. Moving on from my Creed Humphrey number 5. I think what he did this season obviously pumped him up into this list, because before that, a lot of players, a lot of people, especially fantasy players, were looking at this guy like, is this guy fool's gold? Can he run behind this offensive line? Cincinnati, I understand he's kind of a dual running back where he can get, passing yards and rushing yards. But we were still very skeptical. And I think this year he came out and showed that he's a top, 8 running back in the league, top 10 running back in the league. So I think that puts him into number 4 on my list.
Yeah, as I had stated before, my 4 is Creed Humphrey. Jameson doesn't need to flame me again for that one. It's all good, though. Ty, who do you have it for?
Yeah, so for 4, I actually concur with Jameson here. It's Joe Pickleman's Mixon.
Oh, no.
He is, just to make this an even more divisive take, he arguably the best quarterback on the Bengals in the Super Bowl. So, yeah, give me Joe Mixon at
that was a nice
4.
spiral.
Yeah, he's done it before.
He did.
OU fans will recognize OU fans will recognize the play, but yeah. Performed arguably better at quarterback than Joe Burrow, who is the Jimmy Garoppolo of the modern era.
Fair enough.
That was a reach. That was a reach that was a reach to stir the pot. So
I'll say this: Joe Mixon, first OU player to throw a touchdown pass in the Super Bowl. So pretty good stuff. Number
really?
3, yeah, he is.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's insane. Not if we count Aikman.
Troy.
Troy Aikman, dude. What are you talking about?
No, I'm saying no one counts Aikman.
The OG Caleb Williams, Troy Aikman. I made that take a couple weeks ago. That you did. Both did not do very well against Kansas, by the way. So yeah, Jameson, who do you have for number 3?
Yeah, I've got Mark Andrews number 3. And I think this is a huge, compliment to him because of the people that come after him. I like we're talking about, I think that he played, the best this year as a tight end, which is an extremely valuable position. I think he made Lamar Jackson look really, really good in the passing attack whenever a lot of people made it out to be, can Lamar Jackson be a guy to throw the ball and get big yardage? And Mark Andrews, you just said Bobby Creed Humphrey didn't make the Pro Bowl. Mark Andrews should have won the offensive MVP of the Pro Bowl. He had 2 touchdowns, almost 100 yards, was just dominant. The guy just gets open and just makes catches, and that's a very, very valuable position to have in the NFL. You see how many tight ends get paid ridiculous amounts of money, like a Jonnu Smith last year, and just don't do anything because having a good receiving tight end is so, so hard to come around. And Mark Andrews is an absolute steal for the Ravens and where they got him in the draft. I think that number 3 is, I feel very confident about that, him being over Mixon and Humphrey and the people below him.
Yeah, well, definitely the rarity is just massive. If you can get a guy like him, there you go. That's just kind of a little bit of a cheat code. The fact that he was the second tight end they drafted, they drafted a different tight end ahead of him. Crazy stuff. Okay, so my number 3, I've gone flip-flopped back and forth on this between my 2 and my 3. I'm going to go Joe Mixon. Incredible performer, incredible player. I will say, I wouldn't say I was getting close to writing him off, but I was close to writing him off in Cincinnati after how he played last year. But he just completely revitalized himself this year in that Bengals offense and was just incredible. Can catch out of the backfield, obviously an incredible, powerful runner. Just as versatile of a running back as you get in the NFL for sure. So I think Mixon, really hitting his potential in the NFL. Ty?
Yeah, so for my number 3, I got Jameson might be upset. I think we'll very quickly diverge here. But I got to agree with Mark Andrews. He is arguably the best tight end in the NFL. There are a lot of people that would argue some other guys that maybe have, historic, really good relationships and timing and route development and everything else with just all-time great quarterbacks. You guys can read into that what you want. But Mark Andrews, I think even if he wasn't with Lamar Jackson, would be just as good as he is. And I think he is a firm number 3 with my Sooners in the NFL.
Nice. I like it. Jameson, who's your number 2?
The big argument between number 2 and number 1. I think it's a little bit easier to say, but I still think that there should be a lot of props and consideration given to Kyler Murray, and he's my number 2. Kyler Murray was pretty much the MVP favorite halfway through the season, and then he got hurt, and then DeAndre Hopkins went down, and then he came back and he struggled, and the Cardinals lost their huge lead within the division and kind of plummeted. And the stock of Kyler Murray and what everyone was talking about completely shifted. But we can't forget what this guy did at the beginning half of the season whenever he had all of his healthy pieces around him and made the Cardinals a team that no one thought they could be. And he's just, like we've always talked about in the past, once this guy steps on the field, just steps onto any earth. He's the most athletic person in the world. So, I know that's you could talk about LeBron James, but the quickness that Kyler Murray has, he makes everyone else on the field look inferior.
Yeah, no, Kyler's my number 2 as well. He's a true one of one in the NFL right now. The quickness, the arm strength, the playmaking when he's really hot, it's great. Obviously, a lot of kind of weird frustration with him deleting all of his Cardinals stuff, and kind of a weird funk about him right now.
He came out and said that he's kind of repenting on that.
Exactly. He's just said he's not about the nonsense, and I feel like a lot of people have recency bias with how the season ended, but they forget about what we've seen him do when they are really rolling. At the start of the season, where they're the best team in the NFL. Some of the stuff we saw him do last year. He is a next level type of player, truly a franchise type of guy, one of the best players in the NFL. And as he gets better and as he develops, he's going to get to that MVP point, but just not there yet, I would say. Ty, who's your number 2?
I'm actually What were you gonna say, Bobby?
I was gonna say I think we might have I think you might have spoiled it earlier who your number 2 is, but who's your number 2?
No, no, that was a joke. I'm actually very, very curious. Legitimately, this is not a bid or pre-planned. I'm very curious what y'all's number 1 is. I'm excited for that because I agree. I thought I was going to be the only one that had Kyler Murray at 2, which very obviously I do. And a lot of people have sort of the hype of one of arguably maybe the better quarterbacks in the arguably the best quarterback in the NFL now that Brady has retired with Patrick Mahomes. And you got to remember that Kyler Murray is playing with Cliff Kingsbury, who could barely piece things together dealing with Patrick Mahomes at the college level, where passing is arguably much easier than it is. Obviously, there's a lot of development there. But I would say as a whole, I think everyone would agree passing is much easier at the college level than it is at the NFL. Scores will sort of indicate that. So not to demean Cliff Kingsbury, but I would say that he's sort of I don't want to use that word, but a delaying force in Kyler Murray's sort of development, even though he is an air raid guy and a pass-heavy guy. But Kyler Murray, I think, is a very firm number 2. I think a lot of people would have him as the number 1 sooner in the NFL. So I'm very curious to see where this will go. I will say I very quickly thought about mentioning CeeDee Lamb as number 2 just to be different. So I guess he'll go in honorable mentions. But
I thought about CeeDee Lamb at number 5 over Creed. I really did. But the way CeeDee Lamb ended the season kind of did spook me a little bit. That was extremely.
He was on such a stack. He was on such a stacked team, though. Too. It's like as a receiver on that Cowboys team, you're just one tool in the toolbox versus the only option. So.
And the thing with CeeDee Lamb is, this season was his coming out year that everyone was supposed to pick him in fantasy, and he was supposed to blow up for him and all that stuff. But the year before, it was still relatively quiet in terms of production. The
year before was his rookie year.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to say is CD's got a lot of potential, and a lot of people realize that, but he still hasn't fully stepped into that potential. So I'm not grading him in this rank about his potential. I still need him to step into everything that people expect him to be, while Creed went in over his potential and did really great this season. So that was my argument there. But number 1, I'm really nervous Ty doesn't even have this person as number 1 because I think this is very, very obvious. But I'm worried because he doesn't follow the NFL that well that he wouldn't know that this guy is by far almost could be. Some people could talk about him as the best player in the NFL. And that's Trent Williams, left tackle, San Francisco 49ers, getting paid for an offensive lineman. I think $23 million a year to block. They're putting him in motion for the 49ers and having him go across the line of scrimmage and demolish people. We talked about PFF grades earlier with Creed Humphrey. 98.3 PFF grade for Trent Williams this season. That was the best in the league and the best ever for an offensive tackle. The guy's obviously extremely dominant and completely made Elijah Mitchell, a rookie running back, and every single person ran behind him. Jeff Wilson, JaMychal Hasty, all those people look great in San Francisco's running game because you have that powerful of an offensive line on the left side.
Yeah, no, Williams is my number 1 by far. Getting paid $138 million on this contract, 6-year deal. I mean, what can you say about him that you hadn't already said? PFF grades off the charts. The guy is just completely unreal. And you got to say, that output from that 2010 class that OU put out with Gerald McCoy, Sam Bradford a little bit, and Trent Williams is unreal. And quite honestly, you just love to see it. Even though he was not a beanbo guy, still really cool to see an O lineman out there, and definitely helps recruiting in that end. But the man, he's damn good. He's number 1. He's not flashy. He's not going to win any MVPs, unfortunately, but he is undoubtedly the best player in the NFL for OU. Ty?
Yeah, it's It's obvious, right? Like it's so obvious. Jameson knows, Bobby knows. A lot of the listeners are going to agree, right? So you guys just talked about Trent Williams, right? Again,
Hit us with the Baker
best,
Mayfield.
Arguably the best player in the NFL, which is a fair argument because he is in just a ridiculously underappreciated position. The line as a whole, super underappreciated. But at least the defensive lineman, Gerald McCoy, like I mentioned at 5, you can have sacks, you can have tackles, things that are just sort of individual stats that you can point to. There is no glory at all for the O-line. There's no glory at all for the O-line, no matter how good you are. Now on the OU staff, shout out to Phil Lodholt, was one of the best players in the NFL, period, when he played for the Vikings, which I think he played there his entire career. Just no accolades, right? Because it's the O-line. Like, at best case scenario, no one knows your name. Like, the only time that you get an O-liner mentioned is when they have a penalty or just some sort of egregious, mistake. So there's a fair argument there, right? But he's on the 49ers. He's on a team that with, the best quarterback in the league in terms of rings, but, one of the worst quarterbacks to have a playoff team, led them to almost the Super Bowl. Well, they were one pass away from a Super Bowl with just a team that was just such a stacked team. Kyler Murray on the Cardinals, also a very good team. We mentioned Mark Andrews, a Super Bowl winning coach with Lamar Jackson as his quarterback and a whole host of other talent that can't be mentioned there, right? None of them are on the Browns. Okay.
Oh, no.
Baker Mayfield is the best OU player in the NFL. There is not Lamar Jackson, had he gone to the Browns, would not be playing in the NFL anymore.
Call him a wide receiver.
Listen, okay, Patrick Mahomes, had he been drafted to the Browns, would not be in the NFL right now. I will die on that hill. Baker Mayfield went to the worst team in the NFL and drug them by his bootstraps, doing the Dougie, all the way up to the playoffs. I understand he had an underperforming year, right? And there's this whole Odell Beckham Jr. storyline, who went to a team that was already going to make it to the Super Bowl by the time he got there and contributed. I understand he got a touchdown. He was a non-factor, right? The Rams were going to win the Super Bowl whether OBJ was there or not. It is not proven that OBJ was good and Baker was bad just because he went to the – that's like – I made this argument in our group text. It's like Kevin Durant going to the Warriors, right? They were winning before he got there. He showed up and was present for a win. That doesn't mean he was the reason that they won, right?
Oh, my God.
Baker Mayfield is the best OU player in the NFL. I will die on that hill. He's the only one. He went to the single worst team in the NFL, period. He's been the longest tenured Browns quarterback since I don't even know when, since the Browns fans were throwing broken glass and shooting onto the field because they were so bad. He has revitalized an entire team. He did more for Cleveland than LeBron James did. Period.
Oh. I was hoping it would go one of two ways: you putting Baker 1, or you putting Tressway at number 1.
Oh,
I was waiting for it because you were leading up to you're like, no, but
Tressway was a fair argument. I was going to go.
You're like the offensive linemen aren't really thought of that much, But you know what position's even more like underappreciated? That's the punter, and that's Tressway. Man, that was golden. I knew that the Baker Mayfield thing was coming from a mile away. Hey, he should have been the best quarterback in the league if he wouldn't have torn all of his shoulder up. That's why he was so bad. He had to overcompensate.
He should have sat out.
I will say part of that was a bit, right? But he went to the Browns. I did touch on this, right? There's a lot of other guys that I think didn't have that chip on their shoulder that may not have worked out, right? I think if Baker, had he not won the Heisman his year, which was probable, and had he gone to a little bit better NFL team, I think we would have an entirely different perspective on him, right? Like he got dealt the worst sort of hand of cards, and he's doing the best he can. I understand he's not the best athlete, he's not the best X's and O's guy, he's not the best fundamental guy, but I don't think there's anyone else out of any draft class, plus or minus any number of years that would have done as well and still be on the Browns and still be a starter in the league. So.
First year, Ty, I would agree with you, but then he got the best rushing attack in the NFL, and Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb, two extremely good offensive linemen on the interior.
Yeah, but they had an abysmal OC that year that they got.
But, like Wyatt Teller is an absolute monster of an offensive lineman. Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb. This season, Baker Mayfield he's a mediocre quarterback. He's a low-end mediocre quarterback. The problem is whenever you tear your shoulder, all your throwing mechanisms and all your muscle memory is just off. And you can see it. And Baker's done this a lot in the past. He tries to zing things as hard as he can. But whenever you do that and you don't have a functioning shoulder to begin with, he just sails the ball over too many of his wide receivers and gets too many interceptions because he's thinking about how hard he has to throw things because he has to overcome an injury rather than just going back there and throwing the ball. You learned all through little leagues and all through just whatever sport. Don't think about throwing a strike in baseball. Don't think about throwing it in front of your receiver. Just throw it. Just let your muscle memory do it because you've been doing this your whole life. So that's his problem. He should have, like Bobby said, gotten his surgery earlier, should have shut it down, and we'll see how he is next year. But to be honest with you, their target situation, Donovan Peoples-Jones and Jarvis Landry isn't the most stellar 1-2 punch that I'm really thinking of when it comes down to wide receivers.
If Baker were on the Cowboys, they would have played in the Super Bowl.
All right, let's call this podcast. We went longer than I thought we would.
We did. I gotta say, if anyone, I feel like we did omit one pretty big name, Lane Johnson, Philadelphia Eagles. That was probably
a lot of injuries, and he's getting older.
Yeah, he's getting older. He's slipping. But damn, what a great career. If we did this last year, maybe Lane's great. That's all I'm gonna say.
Kenny Stills. Jalen Hurts, other guys that should be mentioned.
Kenny Stills barely on our roster this year.
No love for your guy K9 either, Jameson. So
no, K9 freaking miserable. He's horrible. He's horrible. He's like reverted back to like sophomore year K9 for the
he's no different than he was on OU. The difference is he was on OU before. It's big fish, small pond versus maybe I'm not that big of a fish when you get in the big ponds.
Maybe I don't know.
The dude's already getting benched. It's just bad.
He should just go back to 56. So that's the issue. It's the number.
No.
It is. That's what screwed the Boz. They won't tell you this. They don't want you to know this.
Well, I mean, it would be a reverse Boz. Like if Boz wore 44, he would have been fine.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what
I'm saying. But Kenneth Murray went from 50, like he went from 9 in college to 56 in the pros, and then they let him do different numbers, and we went back to 9, and now he's bad.
Yeah.
So he pulled a reverse Boz. I don't know. Let's just end the podcast. Well, folks, this has been a fun one. If you liked this list or disagree with us in any ways, make sure to let us hear about it in the comments. I want to see your top 5
they're going to disagree with y'all.
They're gonna love Ty for putting Baker
anyone that knows the scientific method could not disagree with.
What is the scientific method again? I don't even remember the steps. Hypothesis number 1, or is there something before that, Ty?
This is why they won't tell you this. Who we're going to define as they is secret, but they won't tell you this. This is why your doctor leaves the room, right? He comes in, he talks to you, and then he goes out and he Googles what is the scientific method.
I'm almost 3/4 to an MD, and I can't even tell you to begin with the scientific method.
Fun fact: if you Google Tress Way, the second picture is just a picture of Stephen A. Smith. It's very
I don't believe Google anymore. I don't believe it.
What do you mean you don't believe Google?
Oh no! It's on the Aaron Rodgers route.
No.
Get me off of this podcast.
Okay, let's get off of this podcast. This has been the Schooner.
Drop the cold takes, and then someone in the reviews will be like, "That Bobby is too political."
Hey, let us know in the comments if you, what type of list you want to see from us. I know it's like the most boring, standardized form of podcasting, but it brings good conversation. I enjoyed it. It's a long off season. Throw us a bone. If you want to see any good list, we'll break them down. We'll do a draft. It'll be fun times. Make sure to hit subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. If you want to see the visual element, subscribe to the YouTube. If you like our, more of an audio thing, you should listen to us on the podcasting space wherever you
Very
get your
convincing.
podcasts. I know, super smooth. I'm tired. I expected a 20-minute show, and also Porter Moser's.
You gave us 5. You gave us 5 talking points. What did you expect?
We didn't even cover all the baseball was one of the talking points.
Baseball was one of the talking.
Okay. And for Ty, Bobby, and I, this is the Schooner Pod. We appreciate y'all.
Presented by the Pigskin Podcast Network and DraftKings. We'll see you next week with another, just hopefully not an hour of rambling nonsense. But yeah,
it's gonna be that.
Who knows? Next week might just be.
Let's record next week's in Vegas. It'll be great. Anyways,
bye.
For me, Jameson and Ty, this has been the Scooter Pod. We'll see you next week. Have a good weekend, and Boomer Sooner.